14, setting the stage for fellowship. Chapter objectives. Explain the leader's highest duty to followers. Describe the importance of managing both up and down. Summarize what your organizational leader will want from you. Identify your fellowship style and take steps to become a more effective follower. Implement the appropriate and specific strategies for effective leadership at school or work. Apply the principles of harnessing power and courage for effective fellowship. Explain the leader's role in developing effective leaders, including how to use feedback and leadership coaching to help followers grow and achieve their potential. The art of fellowship. A follower can be defined as an individual who voluntarily accepts a leader's goals and influence and actively participates in pursuing goals. So we look at good leaders manage both up and down in a hierarchy. So when you find people who are good leaders, there's one thing that they can do. They can manage the people who report to them, their employees. They also can manage the people above them, who they report to on an as-needed basis. And they can do this without alienating or pissing those people off. You don't go tell your boss what they need to do. You can go to your boss and give them good advice about something that they should take under strong consideration or follow your lead on. And when you have a good working relationship between a boss and someone, they can do those kind of things. But managing up, the leader can do both. And I refer to it sometimes as you have some people who manage with authority and sometimes people who manage without authority. Managing up is a skill that helps people consciously and deliberately develop a highly effective relationship with their direct superior to get the best possible outcome for themselves, their boss, their colleagues, and their organization. Again, they have a way of doing it without alienating or pissing the bosses off. They understand. And realistically, in the real world, sometimes they have to manage more than just their boss. Sometimes they have to not only their boss, but their boss's boss. What your leader wants from you. A make it happen attitude, a willingness to collaborate, the motivation to stay up to date, the passion to drive your own growth. So leaders want to see a progressive attitude, a proactive attitude, somebody who's looking to try to learn, somebody's willing to do, somebody who's willing, motivation, stay up to date, meaning who's willing to get additional learning as needed, and a passion for the growth. People can feel passion. It can be contagious, good or bad. Styles of leadership. So when we look at styles of leadership, we have conformist, passive, alienated, and effective. So when we think of this, we will actually talk about these a little bit more here in just a second. So the alienated follower. When you look at the alienated follower, this is someone who's negative. They don't feel connected. They have a bad attitude towards something. And things have happened that's gotten them alienated from an organization or from a leader. And you're not going to get so much out of them as a result. And they view things pretty much negatively. A conformist is somebody who actually is someone, no matter what you tell them, they're going to do. They will never give you any pushback. They never give you any feedback, but they'll just go along with anything that you say. Pragmatic survivor is somebody who I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive this situation. So they can be anything they need to be. They can be alienated follower. They can be a conformist. They can be a passive follower. They can do all of those things because it's based on situation. They're going to do whatever they can do to survive. A passive follower is somebody who sits in the background and they don't take leadership. They follow. They don't have a bad attitude or good attitude. You can't tell one way or the other, but they're just there. And you get very little from them. And really, they definitely don't take any initiative. Strategies for managing up. So when you're talking about managing up, understand the leader. Does the leader like to know all the details of your plans, projects, and problems? Or do they just want the big picture? Most of the time with these people, they just want the big picture. One of the things you find with some people, when you're talking to leaders, particularly senior leaders and executives, if they ask you for some information, tell them the information. They want bullet points. They don't want you to tell them, read them a whole bedtime story. Get to the point. Is the leader controlling or empowering? Depending upon what type of power, what type of leader you have, strategy for managing up, you got to understand who you work for, what type of leader you're dealing with. Some leaders are controlling and some people are empowering. If you're dealing with a controlling leader, one of the things I would tell you that is difficult to do with them is to manage up. They view it as you overstepping your boundary. A leader who is empowering will much more be inclined to allow you to manage up because they're listening to you and they value your input and they don't view it as you trying to tell them what to do. Does the leader like to carefully analyze information and alternatives before making a decision? Okay, if you got a leader who actually thinks about, okay, well, you give me all this information, don't expect me to give you a decision right now. Let me analyze this and let me look at this and let me get back to you. And what they will do, the good ones will get back with you in a timely manner because what they are doing is actually they want to vet the information. Bad leaders are just do it just to stall for time. Is the leader a reader or a listener? Understand what kind of leader they are. If they're a reader or a listener, if they're a listener, make sure you're talking to them. If they're a reader, make sure it's in an email or written up in some kind of way. Is the leader a numbers person or a word person? If you're working for a numbers person or a word person, you got to know the difference. For instance, if you're trying to have a project and they're a numbers person, you make sure you got to tell them how much it costs, how much you're going to need, this and that, getting all, really work the numbers. Make sure you can't have too many numbers in there for this person because that's what they focus on. A word person, they're more or less listening is explain to me why this is a good idea. Yeah, you'll give them some numbers, but the numbers is not their focus. They're probably looking at the bigger picture and thinking about, the results and the outcomes and other things, and they want to hear about the strategy. Is the leader an extrovert or introvert? An extrovert or introvert? If they're extrovert, understand these people can be charismatic, they're outgoing, they're progressive, and they a lot of times are more. I found it you get better results with those kind of people when you have somebody who's an extrovert talking to them. They struggle with introverts talking to them and trying to give them things because they're wired different. Introverts, obviously, if you have an introvert, understand, don't overwhelm them when you're talking to them with being too energetic or whatever else. Some of them can find that annoying. And I've actually heard where people have been told, I need you to scale back your energy. It's too much. That's because you're talking to an introvert. Ways to influence your leader. Okay, ways to influence your leader is be a resource for the leader. Make sure that you're a resource for the leader. Find ways that you're useful to them. Be a resource in whatever capacity that could be. Help the leader, be a good leader. One of the ways you do that is own your own mistakes. Offer solutions, not problems. Ask for advice. Tell the leader what you think. Find things to thank the leader for. Build a relationship. Build a relationship with your leader, and not that time this is done through trust. I found building relationships, it's just that building a relationship, it takes time. And one of the ways you do that is actually being able to perform, deliver, and let your word be bond and it's something they can trust. Ask the leader to tell you company stories. Get involved, allow them to tell you things and give feedback and criticism. View the leader realistically. When you view them realistically, give up idealized expectations. Don't view your leader in a light that they're not in. If your leader is not an extrovert, aggressive go-getter, don't view them that way. View them how they really are. That way you can address and deal with them accordingly. Understand, they will appreciate this type of stuff when you deal with them that way. If you're dealing with them the wrong way, it can alienate and actually piss them off. Sources of power for managing up. So when it comes to personal sources, knowledge, skills, expertise, effort, persuasion. This is basically knowing your job. Know your job, know what you're talking about. And when you're talking, when you're managing up, this is the one thing that you must be. I'm going to tell you right now, if you tell a manager trying to manage up and you tell a manager that what something they said or something they want to do is not right, and you've not done your homework, you have just made a fatal mistake. My thing was whenever I had to manage up, I always make sure that I was 110% right on what I was talking about. Position sources, visible position, flow of information, central location, collective activism. So when you try to manage up, being visible, make sure you're a flow of information. Be centrally located with them. Try to be a collective activist for them. When you're in those types, utilize your position to your legitimate position to manage up appropriately. If you do that, some people have positions where they're actually required to do that. Other people have positions where they're not required to do it, but they do it because they're good at it. Necessary courage to manage up. So there are some people, they despise managing up because they always fear that if it go bad, anything can happen to me, but it won't be good. So I encourage people to take courage, be confident in who you are, know what you're doing, courage to assume responsibility. I have no problem. People should have a problem assuming responsibility and understand that. That means if something goes good, let them tell you how good it was. If it's something go bad, accept the responsibility for it. Courage to challenge. Don't be afraid to push back on things when you're and when I say that, people also know when you're coming from a positive place or a negative place. Are you coming to try to throw stones, or are you actually trying to be helpful? When you're trying to be helpful, don't be afraid to challenge. Courage to participate in transformation. Bottom line is the courage to participate when let's say that we're doing something that we've never done before. Participate in that and have the courage to say, I'm going to be a part of this, because we have to do things we've never done before. Subsequently, there's no blueprint. We don't have anything to go by. We got to write our blueprint as we go. Courage to serve. Don't be afraid to serve. The bottom line is this. When you have situations where you're asked to do things or whatever else, don't be afraid to serve. A lot of times in leaders stuff, we found with a lot of good followers, we got a lot of good leaders, they actually can be good followers when they need to, and they understand there are times when they need to serve because they're not always going to have to be in charge. The courage to leave. The courage to leave something that's not working. Courage to move on, move forward. Coaching leadership, a method of directing or facilitating a follower with the aim of improving specific leadership skills or achieving a specific developmental goal, such as developing interpersonal skills, enhancing visionary thinking, or preparing new responsibilities. So leadership coaching is something that I do. I am a business and executive coach. And what we do in leadership coaching is you try to work with people who are already leaders, and you try to help them to be better at what they do and address issues and shortcomings that they may have. Managing versus coaching. Managing, you're telling, judging, and you're controlling. Managing, you're giving instruction, and they're basically following your lead. In coaching, you may not tell them things, you may ask them things. Well, how would you handle this? A manager is telling somebody, this is what I want you to do. In coaching, how would you ask them, how do we handle this? Facilitating, removing obstacles, and get them to think. And you want to develop them so that if you teach them how to think and how to develop that process and empower them, then they will be able to handle other situations down the road. Benefits from leadership coaching. So when you have leadership coaching, let's start over here with the first thing, clear, direct feedback. One of the things you have to have in that is you have to have, we call it direct feedback. If something is bad, you have to tell them that, but you don't have to tell them in a way that tears them down. You got to be realistic with folks. If something is bad, you can't tell them it's all right. You have to tell them it's bad, but you have to tell them why it's bad too. Now in coaching, once I tell you something is bad and tell you something's bad and why it's bad, one of the questions I will ask you is, so how do you think we can improve it? So a new perspective, helping them find it. And this is part of it. How do you think we can improve it? Your new perspective, help them find a new perspective. Understanding, you know what? We need to move forward. And so sometimes that means finding a better perspective, a new perspective. Advice on handling situations. When you talk to them, you talk to them about situations, how would they handle it? You be able to give them advice as they need it. Some situations, they may be able to come up with answers on their own. Some situations, they may not. Understanding organizational objectives. This is one of the big mistakes that people have, and this is where I refer to it as when people don't have alignment. You don't have alignment with the organizational objectives. You have goals and that you're trying to achieve results, but they're not aligned with the organizational objectives. So you don't have alignment, you don't have consistency there. That could be a problem. You have to make sure people understand that what they do in the organization is part of a puzzle. One piece of the puzzle is just one piece, but it has to fit in with all the others. General encouragement. Sometimes you find situations in coaching, you are talking to someone, you just have to build them up. You have to motivate and encourage them. and get them to understand that, hey, I believe in you, but you got to believe in yourself too. One of the worst things in the world is for somebody not to believe in themselves, and yet they have to deal with a group of people or speak to a group of people, work with a group of people, and others can see that this person is not confident. That's a person that needs to be built up, needs to be encouraged. Handle organizational politics. This right here is probably wrecked more careers than people would care to mention by not being in the know on organizational politics or being outside of the scope and doing things that was against the organization. Every organization has politics. Unfortunately, that's reality. They all do. You have to learn what they are, and you have to learn how to navigate those. And what you do is you navigate those. What you don't do is buck the system. There's been plenty of people who've been idealistic and wanted to fight the system and the politics. And you will win some battles, but I can promise you, you'll never win the war. So what followers want from leaders? Clarity of direction. They want you to give them clarity. Tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you think we should do, whatever it is. They don't like ambiguous. I got to try to figure out what it is you're saying. Opportunities for growth. If you have people who are high achievers and they're good at what they do, one of the things that keeps them motivated is they know they can always try to have opportunities to advance and grow, whether that be through knowledge or whether that means advancing in a position. Frequent, specific, and immediate feedback. Cardinal sin that some people make is a leader will see something and have an issue with somebody, and it happens on Wednesday, an event. Something happens on Wednesday, and it wasn't good, and you need to talk to them, but you wait until the following Monday to talk to them about it. That is horrible. In the military and the army, we used to refer to on-the-spot corrections. That means when you see something, you do something. You fix it. You address it. You don't let it go for multiple days or weeks and come back to it later. It doesn't have the same effect later as it will at the time of the incident. Protection from organizational intrusions. You have to have people who say, you know what? I feel like my leader has my back. So when they have situations within the organization that the leader may know about, but you have direct reports and employees who may not know about them, then you protect your people whenever possible. And particularly when they're doing the right thing in politics and some of the other things get in the way that might be intrusions to actually doing your job. Rank order of desirable characteristics. So desirable leaders are honest, competent, forward-thinking, and inspiring. And these are the ones that most people want to work for because they are hard charging. Now, I can tell you the reason why I say most people, here's one reason why some people would not want to work for these folks, because these are the type of leaders also who hold people accountable. So if someone's not doing their job or is underperforming, they may not want to work for somebody like this because this person is going to be honest and tell you that you're not performing your job. They're competent. They're going to hold you accountable, and they're going to try to work with you, but ultimately they will do whatever they need to do to get you to do what they need to do or get rid of you. Desirable followers are honest, competent, dependable, and cooperative. You have good leaders, but you also have good followers. And you know, it's honest is the first thing you see. Competent, dependable, and cooperative. Bottom line, a good leader wants somebody who's a desirable follower because when they do, they can tell them what it is they need to get done and trust that they would go and get it done the way they asked them to or do it better. That concludes this chapter.